I'm Rabbi Sarah Berman. I'm the Director of Adult Education here at Central Synagogue, and I am just so delighted that you are all joining us to get into the Passover spirit. As most of us have experienced in our lives, Passover is as much about the seder, as much about the service, as it is about the food, the family, the loved ones, the rituals, and the memories that we visit and revisit every single year. One of the greatest ways to help us revisit our past memories and make new ones is through food, right? Yes. I think nobody in here would disagree with me, although I also heard nobody agree with me. Yes, thank you. Well, for so many of us, our Passover memories are built around the sweet treats that we end our seder with. And Joyva, a now fourth-generation family business, has been part of so many of our seders, so many of our Passover memories, so many of the memories that connect us to our families and our pasts. We are honored this evening to hear from the family that runs Joyva Chocolate. I'll introduce them in a moment. But before we begin with our talk, I want to give everybody here an opportunity at their table to share one of their favorite Passover memories. A very short memory because we only have about 3 minutes for this. But if you can share a Passover memory, we'll have a chance to talk about Passover recipes later. But if you share a favorite Passover memory with your table, we'll take about 3 minutes to get to know the people that you're sitting with. Please enjoy. Please take another minute. Now that we've explored some of your Passover memories, we are going to join the Radutzky, the greater Radutzky family for some of their memories. When we hosted Sweet Treat, the history of American chocolate and the making of the American Jewish community in this space, Richard Radutzky reached out to us saying, I hear you're doing an exhibition about chocolate. That's literally my business. Can we help you celebrate this exhibition by bringing our product to your community? And so we have now enjoyed a really beautiful closing exhibition reception, an oneg service, or an oneg Shabbat, full of Joyva sweet treats. And after our conversations, it became really clear that Joyva, as a fourth-generation family-owned business, has so much to tell us, so much in parallel with our own American Jewish histories, maybe our own family histories. Their treats have certainly been part of so many of our memories. And so we've invited Richard, his cousin Sandy Wiener, got it, and Richard's sons, Ben and Sam, to join us for an evening of their memories, talking about their family, their memories, their business, and bringing us all into the Passover season through these routes. And so, Richard, if you would like to begin our program, I turn it over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rabbi Berman. Thank you, everyone, for schlepping out in a not so nice evening, but it's really a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to have you here, and thank you for welcoming us. I want to start by saying that before the program started officially, I got 6 or 7 in-person meetings before we came up here, and I want to apologize that the marshmallow twists don't freeze anymore. Some people think we get a lot of complaints about back in the day, the marshmallow twist used to snap. Well, now if you put it in the freezer, it gets hard and cold, but it doesn't quite snap. But we'll talk about that later. Yes, thank you for having me. Let me just explain about this guy with the camera for a minute. My oldest son, Sam Radutzky, has been working on a documentary about the family biz for about 4 or 5 years now. And he's covering the beginning of the company and my grandfather's journey through Ellis Island and the building of a family business, what it means to be a family business, Jewish culture, food, family, tradition, all of that. And then the second part of the documentary is about what's next for a 116-year-old company. Can a 116-year-old company like ours stay relevant and thrive for another 116 years? So that's why he's here this evening. If anyone, there are some signs. If anyone does not want to be, there's a chance you could be in the documentary because he's filming tonight. If you would like not to be, tap him on the shoulder and say, you're not paying me enough, I don't want to be in your movie. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. So, thank you. To my left is my cousin, Sandy Wiener. He'll introduce himself. We've been working together for 35 years. And over here is my son, Ben Radutzky, who's been in the family biz for about 5 years. And Sam Radutzky over here is gonna start off maybe the conversation and the dialogue and ask us a couple of questions, and we'll sort of get together as a family over here. You can start, or you know what? Let's do the video first. Thank you. So this is a little video that captures a little bit about what we are about. And hopefully, it's about 1.5 minutes long, 2 minutes long. And if there are things that you see in the video that you'd like to address or ask questions about, please do. But enjoy the little 2-minute video.
115 years of joy, the sweetness of how it tastes, the scent of chocolate in the air, the smile upon your face. It's the people that you love and the places you call home, all the laughter that you've shared, all the memories you've known. Generations at a table gathered around for stories told, passing down from old to young until the young become the old. This is Brooklyn before Brooklyn. This is not about the trends. This is history repeating. This is family and friends. This is truly made with love. The tradition never ends. What it is what it was, and what it was, it is again. Can you taste the memories to take you back to where you've been? Holidays and celebrations, dinner parties and events. It's like a time machine to when we all were boys and girls. Life is sweeter when you bring a little Joyva into the world.
It's interesting, there's a line in there that says, "Can you taste the memories?" I think that's a significant thing to say, especially since we're all gathered here this evening. It is about tasting memories. It's about tradition and rituals, like Rabbi Berman said. Sam Radutzky will, I guess, start us off and ask us some questions, and we will certainly open it up for questions and answers. And we'll cover any topics you want.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I wanted to have you guys start, just for everyone here. Can you go into the origin story of Joyva?
Sure. Ben, you want to start?
I'll take that one.
You'll take that one, Ben.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. So Joyva was started in 1907 by my great-grandfather, Nathan Radutzky. He came over from the small town of Obuchov outside of Kiev in the Ukraine, and he had a recipe for halva. And he figured, you know, why not give it a shot? It was actually on the recommendation. Here's a picture of Nathan. And it was on the recommendation of his wife, Ray, pictured there, that he try and sell this halva. So he started making it in his kitchen and selling it on the push carts on the Lower East Side, Orchard Street. That picked up speed. He moved from his kitchen to a garage, and then from a garage to a factory on Meserole Street in Brooklyn. And that was kind of the first step to, you know, turning it into the business that we now know as Joyva. That happened in around 1915, and then he moved into an even larger factory in 1931, and that's the factory we operate out of today. So it's been there for close to 100 years. And over the years, he kind of grew out from just halva to, you know, jelly bars and the various other marmalades, and just kind of expanded the products to how we know them today. And originally called Independent Halva and Candies, in the 1950s when his 4 sons came into the business, pictured there. On the right is my Papa Pete, who's my dad's dad. His brother Mickey to the left of him. And then Harry to the left of him, who's Sandy's grandfather. And then Alex next to him. And the 4 boys were in the business with Nathan in the 1950s when they decided to do a little bit of a rebrand, spice things up a bit. And that's when Joyva came about. Sandy's mother, her middle name was Joy, and they combined that with the va from halva, and thus Joyva was born.
Not a lot of people know that, by the way.
But now you all do. So from there on, the 4 brothers just kind of, you know, developed various, you know, means of expanding product lines and reaching more people. They saw this opportunity to be a presence in the Jewish community beyond, you know, the street, the Orchard Street pushcart. And, you know, over time, they filled this niche that is now the dessert part of your Seder. Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. It was
Yeah.
a good origin story. I wanted to, this is kind of specifically for Richard and Sandy, but can you talk about when, you know, a little bit about when you guys first came to Joyva and what it was like working with your father, Richard, and Sandy, your grandfather, and your uncles, and yeah, what was that experience like? How did it start? How did it change? Hello?
Yes.
How did it change as time went on? And yeah, what was it like working with family for all those years?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Sandy Wiener, by the way. So Richard and I started almost at the same time. Richard came in, I don't know, maybe 1987, 88. And I came in about a year and a half later. I think before then, we weren't sure what we were going to do. I didn't have designs on going into the business. I think working with the older generations sounded a little intimidating. But once Richard decided to do it, I thought it would be really fun to give it a try. So we sort of joined together. And we came to work, we both came to work, and it was like, okay, go into the sesame department and learn it. And they didn't say 3 days later, how are you doing? It was like, just stay there until you know what you're doing. So it was very kind of informal. And the business was extremely manufacturing-centric. Richard's dad spent most of his time in the plant. My grandfather, Harry, did as well. So the plant in those days was the business, for the most part. And they were extremely welcoming to us. They they definitely taught sort of we learned basically by watching them. They didn't say, hey, learn this, learn that. We watched them, and they were among the most decent, honorable people. The handshake meant everything. They didn't really have much of a desire for contracts and such. And they, you know, they opened the door for us, and they were happy to have us there. So it was a really wonderful experience. And I'll let Richard add to it.
Yeah, I mean, to say my father and my uncles were old school is an understatement. They came to work every day on the Jackie Robinson Parkway. Does anyone know what it was called back before the Jackie Robinson Parkway? The Interborough, correct. Give that man $100. They would come, they could be 5 feet of snow on the ground. They would come to work. And in their own way, yes, they welcomed us, but they were not the biggest embracers of change. They were kind of stuck in their ways. And Sandy and I didn't feel like we wanted to butt heads with the founders. It wasn't really in our DNA. And I'm sure many of you in this room know people that are in family businesses. I personally know people that are in family businesses. And it can be a little bit hard when the younger generation comes in because they think maybe it's their time and the old ways don't work anymore. That was not our game plan at all. It was an honor that they let us in the door, and it was an honor to see how they conducted themselves in everything they did. Everything. Not just in business, but how they treated a waiter in a restaurant, how they treated our 60 and 70 employees, some of whom have been there for 30 and 40 years. You know, when I went there as a little nothing, there were employees that were babysitting me that are still there today. And it's a testament to the culture there. It's a testament to the decency of my father and my uncles. And I think Sandy and I knew that our time would come when we wanted to make our own impact and our own changes to the company. But what they built and the foundation that they created was really unbelievable. And we have little anecdotes, by the way. The first fight we had with my uncles and my dad was when we desperately pleaded with them to buy a fax machine. They were, what do you need a fax machine for? People call in the orders, and this was at the time where people were placing their orders through the fax. So they agreed. And that was the first battle we waged, and it was the first battle we won, getting a fax machine.
By the way, sorry, they figured the telex was good enough. Who needs a fax? In case anyone remembers the telex for a minute.
So it was, again, it wasn't in our DNA to battle with them. And again, they were just the most decent, hardworking, sample setting humans on the planet. And what we're doing today, which we'll get to in a little while, all comes from them. You know, it's easy for us to say as the younger generation that, oh, the old guys, you know, they're set in their ways, they don't know what they're doing. But we're discovering, especially because of the documentary, we're discovering that my grandfather and my father and my uncles were actually entrepreneurs. And they took risks. It's easy to say that they didn't like to embrace change and they were a bit set in their ways, which is true. But really, in the end, how do you build a company like this without being an entrepreneur, without taking risks? It's mind-boggling, you know? And we think about that every day. You know, it makes me, I'm getting emotional now, but it makes me, yeah, it's it's crazy what they did, you know, and we can't, you know, our business mantra now is like, don't screw it up. That's it. That's our business plan. Don't screw it up. Maybe a little more than that, because we are going to try and expand our lines and some product innovation. We'll get to that in a minute, but it really comes down to that. Honoring the past, embracing the legacy and tradition, and not screwing it up. Yeah. Sorry about the tears there, but we'll be all right.
So, yeah, kind of along that same vein, you know, Joyva, a halva bar or a jelly ring is not a Kit Kat, right? It's a kind of rare food product that people have a deep emotional connection to. And I'm sure there's plenty of people in this room who can probably speak to that. But it's a part of family, it's a part of ritual, it's a part of tradition, and this candy kind of becomes elevated for people, and it symbolizes so much more than just sugar or dessert or chocolate. So I guess what is it like to be, you know, what is it like to be the leaders of something like that, where people depend on it in a deeply emotional way? And what is it like to have consumers that are so emotionally attached and so loyal to the brand beyond, you know, what is standard for someone's favorite candy bar?
I'll start and then you can go, but it's a good question. The short answer is that, and this is cliched, but we have a responsibility, I guess, to honor our consumers who, even just tonight, I had a few people come over to me and saying, you know, I've been eating your product for 40 years. And my mom is gone, and I remember her bringing halva or jelly rings home. The fact that food can do that, and it can spark those memories, is an immense responsibility as manufacturers. Not just not to screw it up, but to hopefully do that for the next generation. Yeah. You guys?
Yeah, I mean,
Ben handles some of our customer service.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's pretty regularly humbling. You know, you have these, you know, customers from all over the country, a lot of them kind of relocated New Yorkers. But they're always reaching out, you know, whether it's a complaint or whether it's, you know, they just felt like singing our praises, or whether they just wanted to share a little story. There's a deep emotional connection that's so evident that, you know, like my dad said, it makes you feel like there's a sense of responsibility to, you know, for one, carry on the traditions that my dad and Sandy and my grandfather and his brothers and my great-grandfather established. But it's also a responsibility to help all of you carry on your own traditions. You know, we in a lot of people's lives seem to be a vehicle for joy and for family and for tradition, and we're just here to facilitate it in a lot of ways, and we're reminded on a daily basis that there are people out there that just care so much. How could we not care so much too?
You're a very smart boy.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I would just echo those sentiments and say, you know, we don't have a very large office staff, and we don't have a specific customer service person per se. So the three of us have taken a lot of phone calls over the years, and it's incredibly gratifying when you hear the enthusiasm of customers, even when they have a complaint, when they realize that they're talking to an owner, everything changes. And you know, you would think that we were this rock star company when we're actually obviously not a huge company compared to, like Sam said, you know, a Kit Kat or a Hershey bar. But I think our fans are just so incredibly passionate. So yeah, it's very gratifying, and it's an honor to have that responsibility to keep the tradition going.
Correct.
So maybe Ben can lead off with this answer, but I think all of you can speak to this in different ways. But Milton, Richard's father, was the youngest of the four brothers, and worked there basically until the day he passed away. And so can you, or maybe you and Sandy can start and then kind of hand it to Ben, but can you talk about, you know, you said you spoke about how you didn't pick battles and how they welcomed you in. When Milton passed away, and all of a sudden this whole legacy, this business kind of fully and completely fell into your and Sandy's hands, even before Ben got there. Can you speak to what that felt like, and then talk about the trajectory of Joyva since that moment, and what have you and Sandy been doing as you've kind of taken the reins to change Joyva, to evolve Joyva, to resist changing Joyva, kind of all of that. What has it been like kind of taking control and pushing Joyva into the future these last 6, 7, 8 years since Milton passed away?
Yeah, when my dad passed, Sandy and I think our first corporate it reminds me of that. It reminds me of the story at my dad's funeral. In my eulogy, I had said that the first order of business that Sandy and I decided, our first corporate decision, was to close the factory for my father's funeral so that the employees could come and pay their respects. And after I had said that in the eulogy, I also mentioned that I'm sure he's looking down going, "You idiots. What the heck are you doing closing the factory?" But that was our first pretty major corporate decision. And then after that, a lot of the first couple of years was what I mentioned before, like, let's not mess it up, but let's see what we have and let's see how we can grow the business. And we had to get our own footing as well. So, yeah, it was really interesting to be sort of handed this iconic brand and figure out how to continue what we were doing, but also to reach new customers and maybe to come up with new products. And every time Sandy and I would do something that we thought was risky or do something that we thought was a little out of the box, we would step back a little bit, which was really interesting because I said about, they didn't embrace change. Well, Sandy and I had the same kind of inclination at the beginning. But then little decisions along the way and little changes and innovations along the way made it easier if we could see the results. So it was a little bit frightening, but exciting also. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah, the interesting thing is that when you're not, totally in charge, and I think Richard and I at times, there were things obviously that we wanted to do differently. And we would say, I wish we could do this and that, and we did make some of those changes, but all of a sudden when you're actually in charge, you realize, of course, how difficult it is and how much responsibility it is, and you have a lot more appreciation for what his father and my grandfather and what they did before us and how much responsibility was on them. So I think that period of time it took some time to settle in. Like, we just need to sort of keep things going, make a few changes, and kind of get our feet wet in really running the company. And then from there, we decided that we needed to make some major changes in terms of our, of our branding and packaging, and we sort of started to, we hired Farah Besner right here in 2020, and she sort of started us off on a journey of rediscovery for Joyva and how Joyva looks, etc. And do you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, I'll introduce Farah. She'll just say a 1-minute thing, but Farah Besner comes from the billion-dollar companies that made Swedish Fish and Sour Patch Kids, and was the chief marketing officer in that company. And serendipitously, we found each other. And I think, and Farah will speak in a second, but she brought with her real-world, non-family business type of perspective to help us grow in a responsible way to make sure that we weren't alienating our existing customers, but also setting us up for the next 100-something years. But what attracted us to Farah was that she understood all of this. She understood the value of family business. She understood the values that we stood for. And I'll give her the microphone just so she can give you a little bit of perspective on kind of why she would even think of coming to work for this little, Jewish/kosher food company in Brooklyn and Bushwick. And she's been amazing and unbelievable. And it's the first time we ever brought in someone from the outside as part of our executive management team, ever. And it's been the best thing we ever did. So just say hello for 1 second, Farah.
Hi, everyone. So what's interesting is Richard just said I came in to help things change, but I think one of the first things we did was figure out what not to change. And we actually spent a lot of time talking through what matters to us, who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And, interestingly, I will stand. So I'm Canadian. I didn't grow up here, so I didn't grow up with Joyva. But I quickly learned from the team and from reading different letters from consumers and just hearing things online, just how deeply people felt about this brand. And so, yes, I've worked on, Oreo and Sour Patch and stuff, but I really saw Joyva as this just once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take a brand that's so meaningful to so many people and help set the trajectory for what we hope is at least the next 100 years. So we talk almost every day about protecting and honoring the past while also evolving us for the future. So, we did make some tweaks to the formulas, but we hope everyone we'll have to investigate this marshmallow thing, but I'm going to blame the freezer evolution, not the marshmallow evolution. But to make sure that we were making sure the products tasted as delicious, but keeping in mind what consumers care about today. So removing artificial colors and flavors, using things like purple carrot juice to color the jelly rings instead of red number, whatever it was. But, and to evolve the packaging so that you could tell that the tahini, the halva, and all of the confections were all part of the same family, but each a little bit unique. We wanted people to think, oh, this is the Joyva I recognize. Oh, but wait, is it different? We're not sure. So we can have a whole conversation about the packaging, but we think we really tried hard to honor the past. On the back, there's Nathan's story. His signature is there. One of the exercises we did, one of the things in marketing is figuring out if this brand didn't exist, what would be missing from the world. And everyone did a little exercise, and Sandy's reading through his, and he said, yeah, and if Joyva wasn't around, then America's original halva would no longer be. And I was like, whoa, are we America's original halva? And in fact, we are, and that's a big thing on our packaging now. We were the first ones to commercialize and make halva in America. So just really looking about our past and having our past inform the future, and always, always, always coming back to what matters to us, which is our values. And our values, really meaningful to us: tradition, family, doing the right thing, and also enjoying the ride, because we are selling candy after all, and if we're not having fun while we're doing it, then what's the point? So I'm going to pass it back to Richard.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you. I'm going to show you, I'll just show you a picture. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, well, I wanted to add, because I fall into an interesting spot in that timeline. My arrival coincided with Farah's pretty closely. And, every generation is going to be, to some degree, averse to change. So you have my dad and Sandy, who learned under the "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" crowd. And then you have Farah coming in with 1,000,002 ideas on how to make things better. And understandably, my dad and Sandy kind of were a little bit reticent, a little bit nervous about some of these things because, you know, they had been working there for 30 years and they knew how everything was. But, you know, I'm there on a day-to-day basis, and you can feel the specters of the past throughout this factory. I mean, this is a picture of, like I said earlier, we're in the same building from 1931 to today. And that's a picture of my great-uncle Mickey on the left and myself on the right at the same exact machine in the same exact spot with the same exact wooden floor and metal pole. Different shoes. Certainly different shoes, but and a nicer hairnet, and a hairnet, actually.
And no sawdust on the floors anymore.
Yeah, we've moved away from that. But it was interesting. I saw my role as an opportunity to bridge the gap between the Farah era and the previous era. And it was exciting for me, not having worked with that previous era, to attack the new Joyva with a bit of, you know, fervor and excitement and, you know, that millennial touch. And yeah, so it's just kind of pushing things forward has been my goal here.
This photo is 70 years before this photo. And when we see things like this, it really dictates what we do. This isn't just nostalgia. It has to inform what we do today. And there are trends now, by the way, you know, with Jewish cuisine and the deli culture and the foods that we are all used to. You know, they're kind of not making a comeback for the people that know it, but there are other people outside of that box that are enjoying, you know, a potato latke, even if they're, you know, if they didn't grow up on it. So we're hoping to be a little bit outside the box without ever forgetting the inside of the box, which is kind of our mission at the moment. So I'm not sure how much time we have, but we do want to open for questions and answers. So Sam, are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So hold on. Oh, wait. We're going to facilitate a little bit. We have Marina. You're going to grab a mic.
Yes.
Okay.
Call on someone.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned that you have some new products on the horizon. Is it like a latke flavored halava? What's the deal?
So what we're discovering, there are two product innovation lanes. One of them is, what can you do with halva? People are putting it in babka. People are sprinkling it on ice cream. Who knows, maybe we'll see a Ben & Jerry's flavor that's have a halva day. So there's that whole thing about halva itself becoming more mainstream. And we're going to try and take advantage of collaborating with people that can use halva as an ingredient, whether it's an ice cream or baking and so on and so forth. And then we're also working on some other pretty exciting innovations that I can't really tell you about now, but are. Yes, that's true. That's more of a flavor extension, correct. But we're coming out with pistachio halva now, and every once in a while we talk about changing the flavor maybe of the jelly ring, not changing, but adding a different flavor and so on. So we have some product innovation in the pipeline. Some are pretty substantial. And, well, I can actually tell you. We're actually toying around with making a peanut butter cup, but with sesame butter inside instead of peanut butter. And we're sort of in the R&D phase of that now. But if I see a sesame butter cup on the market after this event, I'll know it was one of you that stole it.
Rabbi's prerogative, I'm saying yes, please.
Question. Go ahead, Rabbi. Anyone.
All right.
Hey, Ben, you mentioned that as the person who fields customer calls, you hear a lot of stories from customers across the country. What are some of the most touching stories that you could share with the class?
There's a lot to choose from, but I'll give you a couple. One of them is a little bit of a shorter one. When our new packaging came out on the market, we heard from plenty of people, wow, this is beautiful, this is cool, this is retro, this is that. And then we got one customer email absolutely outraged. Couldn't believe we would do this because their mother had been collecting boxes of marshmallow twists, the empty box of the marshmallow twists with the little doily and the, lack of artistic direction. And she had been collecting these same boxes for upwards of 40 years. And all of a sudden, we have this hip and happening new marshmallow twist box on the market, and she was appalled. Absolutely disgusted. As was her son. He was just like, how dare you ruin my mother's collection? So, that was a little bit of a fun complaint, if you will. And then another one was just, and this was great, we got an email from somebody just saying how much they love Joyva, how they've been eating it their entire lives, like upwards of 50, 60 years. And she was writing for no reason other than to thank us. And we had some back and forth, and we ended up going out to actually meet with her in New Jersey. We brought her some treats, and we just kind of sat down with her and talked to her a little bit about her life with Joyva. And it was a beautiful moment, and it was a really, again, just a reassuring feeling that people are dedicated to Joyva. So much so that she took a bite of a twist and said, "You changed something." So yeah, those were a couple fun ones for sure.
She was 93 years old, had been eating Joyva forever. I think she had mentioned she couldn't find the twist in maybe her local ShopRite in New Jersey. And we said, all right, let's bring her some twists. So we brought her some twists. We met her. We met her son. She did say before we came, she says, I can't find Batamte pickles in New Jersey either. Needless to say, we stopped and brought her some Batamte pickles. I'm sorry. I called my wife and I said, honey, find the Batamte pickles. There she is. So we brought her some Batamte pickles, we brought her some marshmallow twists, and we had it was really a joyful, special gathering, And it wasn't for PR, it wasn't, let's be on the local news. It was just this kind of weird human instinct, Like, how can we not help this woman out? Like 60, 70 years she's been eating the product. She's 93 years old and completely lucid, was a school teacher. I mean, it's just like, what? So thank you for asking that. Yes?
This is a little random, but I was just curious to know if you've ever connected with the Gold family and Gold's horseradish, because they're also, I think, a 3-generation family business. You kind of have the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we know Mark Gold from the Gold family. Yeah, Yeah, you know, there are a couple of companies like ours out there that are here in New York that are multi-generational. We're very friendly with Russ and Daughters. We're Zabar's, Zaros. We've known the Zaros for a very long time. So there are, you know, there's a little bit of a club, and the Golds was part of that club. They recently sold to a big private equity firm. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I'm not sure the children were interested in horseradish or. But no, it's hard. It's a tough thing to do when you're a family business and you're looking to evolve and bring in a new generation. Definitely, you know, the halva business and the jelly room business is not for everyone. You know, it's you know, but here he is.
It's candy.
It is candy.
Candy's
It's not
cool.
gefilte fish.
This was really interesting. Thank you very much. I'm wondering whether there are any daughters or sisters who might have been interested in joining your firm, since all the pictures and the presenters are men. And of course, times have changed. So I'm thinking now about the younger generation more than the grandparents' generation, but maybe you could comment on that.
Next question. Go ahead.
I'll take a spin on that one. First of all, we do. I mean, it is possible on the younger generation that, I mean, Richard has a daughter, Sophie. I have a daughter, Maddie. They could be interested in the business one day. At the moment, they aren't. I don't think my mom was ever really interested in the business, but I think, and this is, I don't really think that they, and we've said this many times, I don't think that they were really being sexist. As I said earlier tonight, the business was so manufacturing centric. They put on their work clothes, they got under machines, they got on the forklift every day. So I think they really thought in their minds, like, well, what would a woman do? I mean, I know it doesn't sound right today, and I would agree with that, but I really think that was the thought. So I don't think they encouraged it, but I think they weren't like, oh, we need a sales and marketing person, so why don't you come work in the office? I just don't think that that was sort of in their heads back in the day.
And I will say that the people that we are partnering with, whether it's Farah or research and development consultants and the people that helped us design our packaging, all women-led businesses. And that's not shocking at all, but it was a really welcome and I don't want to say surprising, it was just, it ended up that way, that the people that we're currently working with on the creative side of things are mostly all women now. And I mean, from my experience, this isn't a generalization, but they wear a lot of hats. My wife is the best multitasker in the world. I am not. And I find that to be true in business. Without being too much of a generalization, I find the women that we've been working with have been committed and wearing a lot of hats and just an incredible pleasure to work with. And if my daughter did want to come in, and Sandy's daughter, let's do it, definitely. But again, that generation was thinking a little bit differently for sure, I think, yeah. Even though it was Grandma Ray's idea to start the halva business. Yes.
Hi. Well, as I said earlier, I went to Camp Chippewa, with the Radutzky family. I think their much older aunt was just a year ahead of me at camp. And we always had halva under our beds. We had cartons of halva under our beds. We also had Zaro's black and white cookies, and my father was in the meat business, and he would bring up, do you remember, was it shtickel for a nickel? They were the little salamis, little miniature salamis that were all strung together. So that's what campers used to eat in those days. But I remember not liking halva when I was a kid. And it was a taste that I grew to like, a taste that I developed a fondness for. And my mother ate it all the time, but it was never tasty to me, and I enjoy it now. And I noticed that you now have the jelly rings in individual. Are you trying to appeal to a younger demographic?
Definitely. Back in the day, the jelly rings were only available in that 9-ounce box that you see during the Pesach season. And they were in bulk. And sometimes they were in bodegas or delis, and people would take them for a nickel and take them out. Well, that became not so sanitary. And then we thought if we could individually wrap them, that kids maybe would throw them in their lunchbox for school, or their parents would, say, try this, or it's... So that was one of the first things Sandy and I did, actually, was convince, I think they were there my dad was there at the time, where we bought that machine, where we decided to individually wrap them, and that was one of the earlier innovations that we had done. What's interesting about halva is that, it's 60% sesame, tahini, and hummus has become mainstream, right? And when tahini was first on the shelves in the supermarkets, it was only in the kosher section. But then it went to the specialty food section, and then it went to the international section, and then it went into the sauces and the condiments. So there are a lot of foods that we're eating today, especially that probably started, whether they were in Eastern Europe or wherever, whether it's the bagel or whether it's halva, we're hoping to follow this kind of trajectory where foods that are important to a certain community do have reach outside of that community. And, we're hoping to kind of take advantage of that. But at the same time, make sure that we thrive and live in the community like this also. We're not going to come out with a bacon-flavored halva, I will say that.
Thank you. This has been great. I have a question. You said the two of you came into the business at around the same time, and you started getting active after your dad passed away. So what was your very first innovation that was a success, and your innovation that didn't work out so well?
Go ahead.
No, I don't think we had any innovations that didn't work out, because we didn't have too much in the way of innovation. Like Richard just said before, we sort of changed the size of the rings and things. We did have briefly a chocolate-covered sesame crunch called the Sesamette, which honestly I still think today and one day I think will be a huge product. We just didn't really put much behind it, but that was while his father and my grandfather were still there, so I think they just thought it would sell on its own, and obviously today we know you have to put a lot of marketing dollars behind a new product. But I might be forgetting something. Is there anything else?
No, I think maybe some of the innovation was about the actual process and manufacturing. We have a factory here in Bushwick, a 100-year-old building. We have a union. We have about 70 employees. And I think Sandy and I were trying to concentrate on how to make the production a little bit more efficient. And to see if we could, like I said, be a little bit more efficient on the production side. Are we making too many products? Should we add a different flavor? Stuff like that. But I think most of the innovation that we're working on has actually happened in the last 2 to 3 years. Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it school is not necessarily a bad thing as long as you don't stay status quo. Yes?
Hi. I'm interested in history, and I'm finding this all really interesting. I'm wondering if you know anything about the history of confections when, I think it was your grandfather, expanded from halva into the jelly and the marshmallow. Like, what was the market like for confections at that time? Was jelly a thing? Was it from Eastern Europe? Was it a Jewish thing? Was it just in the early 1900s? Was that what people were eating? Was Hershey's around then? Like, do you know anything about why he chose jelly rings and marshmallow to go into? Was it something that people were eating then?
That's a good question.
I would imagine it to some extent. I mean, halva is an ancient Turkish confection. And I would imagine to some extent making jelly marmalade bars was slightly derivative of the Turkish delight idea. But I think it was just the resources that he had access to at the time were conducive to making a jelly product. Over time, we got different machines that allowed him to, make the ring shape as opposed to just a bar. But he was, as far as we can understand, because it's not very well documented on his part, but as far as we know, he was kind of like rolling with the punches a little bit, and just working with what he had to try and make different products.
Yeah, I don't know if jelly or marshmallow was popular when that came out, or they were the trendsetter. Maybe they were. They liked to do things without, I mean this in the best way possible. They had their convictions. And I think they thought that if something was gonna work, that it would work. And I think jelly and marshmallow are easy to make, for sure. They're easy to manufacture, they have basic ingredients. And then to put chocolate on them, like you could put chocolate on anything and it's good. I mean, you can eat chocolate covered matzah, you could eat anything.
I just was wondering, and I don't mean to ask anything that you can't tell us, between the jelly and the marshmallow versus the halva, can you say which is the bigger part of your business?
First of all, 30% of our business is Pesach. We actually start making Pesach candy in October. So it's sort of like our Halloween. The stores want it early, and we put it in the warehouses so they can get it. And the same thing happens for Valentine's Day and for Easter. All those companies make those products months and months before so it can get on the store in time. I lost my train of thought. The original question was... Oh, that's right, yeah. So Pesach is around 30% of the business, and then I think... where are we now, jelly, as compared to halva? I think halva is now doing this a little bit, right? Halva was a little flat. There weren't a lot of new consumers for halva. But that's starting to change, and maybe that's because of the changing tastes of the consumer. People are willing to try new and semi-exotic things, if you want to call halva exotic. So our halva sales are definitely increasing. And the jelly rings are a little more accessible, and the marshmallow is, yeah.
So we're going to take about 3 more questions. So I have a couple of people queued up.
Okay.
I'm just curious more about the administrative side of the business. It sounds like there wasn't really a transition built or explained or anything else by the time the third generation took over. Now that you're starting to groom the fourth generation, are you starting to build a little bit more of an infrastructure and a transition and a strategic plan, maybe? Although it can be changed, it doesn't need to be set in stone, or anything like that for the future. And maybe there's more of the fourth generation that will be coming in?
I mean, I would say, obviously you guys met Farah. So Farah was, even though it's only one person, but that one person obviously brought a huge sort of sea change to the business because of packaging in terms of, as we said, ingredients and things. So that alone is a big change for us. And then obviously having Ben and the things that he's interested in. So it's yes and no, I feel like. So no, we don't have a much larger staff than we used to. But yes, I feel like we're sort of moving in that larger, broad-based direction for the future.
Yeah, I mean, my father and my uncles they set up a good transition plan in terms of the business. But they weren't teachers, they weren't very verbal. Again, like I said before, and Sandy said before, it was really learning by example and observing. And, now that Ben is here, I think Sandy and I are making more of an effort to be more communicative with the younger generation, to seek more advice from the younger generation. So in that way, I think there is a bit of a different transition from third to fourth generation than there was in the previous generation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. It's also, to a certain extent, a product of the times. In our rebrand, in our attempts to kind of grow up and mature as a company, we, much like they had to embrace a fax machine, we have to embrace the internet, embrace social media, all these things that are essential to the modern day business, whether it be a startup or a Hershey. So it's weird because it's like he said, it's like I'm the new guy, but I'm also kind of teaching them some things that they didn't quite know. So in that way, the transition itself it's been a pretty malleable, kind of ever-changing process, but all working towards solidifying a number of different things throughout the company, whether it be regulatory, whether it be consistent branding and packaging, things like that.
The question?
Yep.
Okay, we'll get to them. Okay.
Okay. Is there a plan sometime in the near future to bring back the 7-layer halva in the large loaves? That is an incredible dinner finisher and all year long. And my friends over at Russ said, nah, I don't think so. So I'm asking you. But if no, it's fine.
A real fan back here.
I was going to say, that's a real fan throwing out the 7-layer halva. That's a purist right there. We, strangely enough, I can tell, we made the 7-layer halva for another halva company. It was never Joyva branded 7-layer halva. It was such a pain in the neck to make. It was just very labor intensive, and we just couldn't get enough out the door. But your reaction to the 7-layer halva is common. People really, really do love it. And you know what? Maybe Ben will make some tomorrow morning.
I'm on it.
So you mentioned a little bit about growing the business by adding product. I would give you an example of one product that I would discourage you from pursuing because I had it and it was awful. It was Hummintaschen with halva. I love Hummintaschen. No, I know you didn't. Someone, a bakery, Upper East Side, I won't say where. I love Hummintaschen, I love halva. Together? No. But my question is about growing in a different direction. You mentioned product not available in Canada. Are you looking at marketing outside of the New York area, the New York metro? I have to assume your distribution is a very high percent local. U.S., international, digital? Yeah, what do they eat in Canada? And as well, I'm curious about digital sales, whether direct to consumer or any of that.
No, that's a great question. We sell nationally in the major markets that you would imagine: California, Chicago, New York, Florida, and everywhere in between. Things like tahini, that have become more mainstream, you could probably find in a Kroger in North Dakota, because everyone's cooking with tahini now and making dips and hummus. But you're not going to find a piece of halva yet at a Kroger in North Dakota or a jelly ring. But to speak to digital sales and Amazon and direct-to-consumer, you'll have to talk to this guy.
Yeah. Myself and Farah have been working on the digital part extensively, starting in Amazon, kind of, taking control of our products on there, offering, things that you can't necessarily find in stores. 2 packs, a bigger like gift box of jelly rings you can actually get on Amazon these days. And just digital marketing. Direct to consumer is perhaps in the cards, but not in the immediate future, at least from our own website. But you can go to our website and it'll link you to Amazon. So we're kind of integrating these digital marketplaces into whatever existing infrastructure we have, and at the same time trying to branch out and reach more markets through broadening our own sales network. Perhaps, going locally international, Canada, Mexico, stuff like that in the future.
Yeah, there's a department store, I think, in England or France somewhere that has an entire floor dedicated to Brooklyn and Brooklyn products, because Brooklyn itself is a bit of a brand. So, the being entrenched and from New York and a bit of a New York institution or a Brooklyn institution has its own sort of cachet, has its own potential for new business as well. And part of the new packaging, I don't know if you noticed, but we call out and we say Brooklyn 1907 on the package, which we didn't do before. But, we've been in Bushwick for 100-something years, and it seems to be a draw among consumers. Oh, that's authentic New York. That's authentically Brooklyn, which we're hoping to capitalize on. Yeah.
So the future of your company feels like a really great place to end this evening. We've come to time. I want to ask, is there anybody who brought recipes this evening? All right. So I'm seeing a couple of people in the back left corner. So if you brought a recipe this evening, I invite you to make your way to the back corner table for an additional 5 to 10 minutes together. For those of you who did not bring a recipe, I invite you to share with the folks at your table before taking off. What is your favorite Passover flavor? What is the flavor that brings you back, or the dish that brings you back to your own family's history and your own traditions? And as you think of your answers, I want to thank Sandy and Richard, Ben and Sam, Farah, everybody whose work, all of your 70 employees, whose work goes into making these amazing treats and these continuing memories for all of us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us. It really is, it's very meaningful to gather like this, to reflect, to spread a little joy in a crazy world. So it really means a lot that you all came out to listen to us knuckleheads talk about chocolate. So thank you so much.
And Chag Pesach Sameach.